नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवतसेवया भगवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी. So we continue our study of Srimad Bhagavatam, 6th canto, chapter 1, the history of the life of a Jamin, text 54. Labdva nimitam avyaktam labdva nimitam avyaktam vyaktva vyakta vyaktam bhavati uta. Technical issues, so if you can use that to here. Okay, yes, sir. Yeah. Vyaktya vyaktam bhavati uta yatha yoni yatha bijam yoni yatha bijam swabhavena baliyasa swabhavena baliyasa labdva nimitam avyaktam vyaktya vyaktam bhavati uta yatha yoni yatha bijam swabhavena baliyasa labdva nimitam avyaktam vyaktya vyaktam bhavati uta yatha yoni yatha bijam swabhavena baliyasa. Labdva nimitam avyaktam vyaktya vyaktam bhavati uta yatha yoni yatha bijam swabhavena baliyasa. Mataji, please chant. Labdva nimitam avyaktam vyaktya vyaktam bhavati uta yatha yoni yatha bijam swabhavena baliyasa. Labdva, having gotten, nimitam, the cause, avyaktam, unseen or unknown to the person, vyaktya vyaktam, manifested and unmanifested, or the gross body and the subtle body. Bhavati, come into being. Uta, certainly. Yatha yoni, exactly like the mother. Yatha bijam, exactly like the father. Swabhavena, by the natural tendency. Baliyasa, which is very powerful. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki. The fruitive activities a living being performs, whether pious or impious, are the unseen cause for the fulfillment of his desires. This unseen cause is the root for the living entity's different bodies. Because of his intense desire, the living entity takes birth in a particular family and receives a body which is either like that of his mother or like that of his father. The gross and subtle bodies are created according to his desire. Purport. The gross body is a product of the subtle body. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 8.6, Yam Yam Vapi Smaran Bhavan Tyajyante Ante Kalevaram Tam Tam Evati Kaunteya Sada Tad Bhava Bhavita. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, that state he will attain without fail. The atmosphere of the subtle body at the time of death is created by the activities of the gross body. Thus, the gross body acts during one's lifetime and the subtle body acts at the time of death. The subtle body, which is called linga, the body of desire, is the background for the development of a particular type of gross body, which is either like that of one's mother or like that of one's father. According to the Rig Veda, if at the time of sex the secretions of the mother are more profuse than those of the father, the child will receive a female body. And if the secretions of the father are more profuse than those of the mother, the child will receive a male body. These are the subtle laws of nature which act according to the desire of the living entity. If a human being is taught to change his subtle body by developing a consciousness of Krishna, at the time of death, the subtle body will create a gross body in which he will be a devotee of Krishna. Or if he is still more perfect, he will not take another material body but will immediately get a spiritual body and thus return home back to Godhead. This is the process of the transmigration of the soul. Therefore, instead of trying to unite human society through pacts for sense gratification that can never be achieved, it is clearly desirable to teach people how to become Krishna conscious and return home, back to Godhead. This is true now and indeed at any time. वैराग्य विद्या निज भक्ति योग शिक्षार्थमेक पुरुष पुराना श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य शरीर धारी कृपां बुद्धिर्य तमहं प्रपद्ये मुखं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुदीनतारणं जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंदा श्री अद्वैत गदाधार शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. Hare Krishna. So we continue taking learnings from the history of the life of Ajamil. So translation says, the fruitive activities a living being performs, whether pious or impious, are the unseen cause for the fulfillment of his desires. See, life is like a circle. The circle can never be complete until and unless there is devotee intervention or divine intervention, or until and unless a living entity, a jiva, a soul, he gets his relationship with Krishna. He understands his relationship with Krishna. A living entity, a jiva soul, gets to be in a living relationship with Krishna. Only then, yes, the circle is getting complete. And from Krishna's perspective, from Krishna's side, he has provided everything. He is doing everything. He has provided, doing as well, and will provide as well. On our part, we just need to tune in ourselves. And in many ways, can be said this is like a fact of life. In many ways, life is also like a sandwich. We know what a sandwich is like. The name itself, some names, when we call out those names, they sound a bit funny or give some sort of impression or message. And sandwich itself is one such name actually. Sandwich, like we see, okay, you take two breads, huh? Two breads, and in between there's some filling, or in between there's some filling, or there's something inside, and you kind of wrap the bread together. Okay, that's essentially like a sandwich. So in our life as well, life actually is a sandwich. And what's the feeling, or what is that which is bringing the two things in which is desire and expectations. Desire and expectations. Complete like life can or has for many become like a sandwich. One end is desire, another end is expectation. And in between, the living entity, the soul, many times getting mashed up, many a times, because of one's desires and expectations. Again, there is nothing wrong or harm with having desires, carrying desires. Desires is the sign of a person who is living, who is alive, who is not just existing but living. Sign of a living person, desires, and of course, expectations has to be there. Expectations are good and they should be there. We all are driven by expectations. We haven't become stone yet. So expectations and desires are to be there. Now it's just a question of understanding there is some missing link in our life, in everyone's life, because everyone, any part of the globe, if we see, everyone is looking for pure joy, happiness, satisfaction, peace in some loving relationship, healthy loving relationship. And in spite of all these efforts, we are constantly, very regularly disturbed by so much of external things going on in this material world, the nature, how it is acting, and also disturbed within ourselves as well. And desires and expectations play a huge role, play a big role. So how to make the sandwich of our life very nectarian is by checking into our desires and checking into our expectations. Aligning our desires, something which is very helpful in the progressive realization of our aim and aspiration, involving spirituality in our life. So something which is very helpful for our body, mind, and soul all together, catering to our emotional needs, our psychological needs, our intellectual needs, even our egoistical needs, all our needs, catering to those needs. So the fruitive activities a living being performs, whether pious or impious, are the unseen cause for the fulfillment of his desires. It's a proper cycle. One thing activates the others. As soon as there is desire, expectation is attached to it, it builds up. And once that desire is, and then the entity, living entity, tries. We are always on a chase. We all are in a chase. Believe it or not, but we all are in a chase. So trying to chase our desires or trying to fulfill those expectations. And somehow or other, say if that expectation is fulfilled, then it creates new set of desires. New set of desires leading to further more expectations. And even if we know that, oh, this isn't a healthy desire, I shouldn't go for it. If it's fulfilled, it is going to give me trouble only. But still, we are now entrapped. We are now captured. So we follow the desires because we do not know if at all there is an alternate solution, if at all there is an alternate path, there is an alternate thing. And this is why scriptures, they always encourage us to be intelligent. They want us to be intelligent. An intelligent person is one who is exploring, who is looking a bit more, who is seeking. who's trying to make sense, who's trying to go more deep. And it should be a natural call, natural longing. Well, if I'm after happiness, then after putting in so much of efforts as well, why is it that every regular interval I get baffled, I get bewildered? So, and the subtle things have to be understood in life. Subtle things are very, very powerful. Is this unseen cause is the root for the living entities, different bodies. Our desires, our expectations, it is inside one's heart. It is going on in one's mind, subconscious mind, or in the forefront of one's mind, conscious mind. But they are there and they are kind of unseen. But it's how we act, how we bring ourselves together. And we can say, okay, he's desiring this thing or she's desiring that thing. This is her expectation or that is her sort of expectation. And the cycle continues. The chase is continuing, ever going on, going. This is why, again, spirituality helps us pause for a moment, take a break, take a gap, assess, analyze the situation, and then reconnect yourself, retwine yourselves, reshape yourself with some thought into it, with some more energy, more motivation, clear inspiration, clear aims and aspirations. Then again, navigate, make your way. It's very important to take breaks or halts or stops or pauses or moments in life to reflect, to ponder upon. The gross elements, they are obvious, they are generally obvious or they are quite seen and visible. But the real thing is the subtle elements, and this is what Jamil also was suffering uh, subtly inside his head. He was contemplating, he was thinking on all it. And we see, like before a structure, a tower, a building is say constructed, first comes the design of it. Okay, how do we design? How do we map it? So we write it in a piece of paper, we draw it in a piece of paper, and there's some thinking thought process. Or which is the best way for getting water out, entrance, exit, all these things. So first comes the thinking process. Next is the working process. But the way the world is laid out, the society is laid out, is like generally pushing us, okay, act first. Thinking can be done later. Act first, act now. It doesn't help. A sober person, he would think first. He would analyze first. He would assess first. And then he would go on actually acting on it. And this is where, like Ajamil, he was, his desires, he was thinking on it, contemplating on it, and he was developing that expectations, The modes of material nature are very, very strong, very strong. Again, the paradox, it is a wise person, an intelligent person who comes to this understanding that yes, I am being bound up. I am bound up by the modes of material nature and I'm quite helpless. These desires are pulling us. We think that, okay, I'm on top of my desires or I'm on top of my expectations, but no. Desires and expectations are actually pulling us. And it's just a matter of one WhatsApp message, one email or something, and then we see, oh gosh, I'm a bit shaken up, or oh wow, I'm so elated. There's this constant going on. Again, just like before entering temple room, we ring a bell. So our life as well, we are constantly being rung by our desires and expectations. Now, spirituality begins when we understand who we are, what is our identity. Are we this gross matter? Are we just this material body? Or are we some more finer elements, some subtle elements? Are we the intelligence, the mind, the ego? Or spirit, soul, a spiritual being? So once we get our identity clear, then yes, we can channelize our desires. Is this something ultimately beneficial for me or not? We can then properly make our expectations as well, set our expectations, or even if our expectations are not met, we need not get disturbed by it. We need not get disturbed by it. And it's not like I'm carrying these desires or expectations just from this life. No. So actually a saintly person is one who protects his present moment, who safeguards his present moment, who values his present moment. And life gives us so many opportunities. There will be events, circumstances, situations wherein we have to pause, maybe short or long, and take assessment and come to a decision, make some decision. So at that time, if we can actually, we try to protect, and if we can protect that present moment of ourselves, then we can shape up the future nicely. We are shaping up the future. And we will be clearing off a lot of samskaras or previous impressions and all. Otherwise, we will be pushed by our previous impressions and willingly or unwillingly still go on carrying on with those desires. So, in Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna asked Krishna, Atha kena prayukto ayam papam charati purusha anicham api varshnaya baladiva niyojita. That Krishna, why is it that people are engaged in sinful activity? Papam charati purusha. People go into themselves, engaging themselves in sinful activities. Anicham api varshnaya. Krishna, anicham, without their desire, without their wanting. They do not desire for it. Api varshnaya. Although they do not desire for it, still they are going for committing the activity, which is wrong. They know it. So what is that force by which they are being pulled? Very forcefully, strongly pulled. So Krishna replies and says that Kamesha Krodesha Rajoguna Samudbhava Mahashano Mahapapma Vidhyena Meya Verinam Shishikoranitaya Mayapur Sashiki Jai. So it is lust which forces that person, which forces the entity to, even though he has known, even though he has heard, even though he has himself experienced that this is wrong, this isn't going to make me happy, uh, uh, I'm going to regret for it. But still, because of those desires, lust, kamesha, krodesha, because of anger, he still engages himself and he's helpless. And this sort of being born out of the mode of passion, heavily out of the mode of passion, the person goes on committing. And again, by lust, it doesn't mean just this physical, sensual activity. It's not just a physical, bodily, sensual activity on that platform. Lust could be a heavy, strong, intense desire for sense gratification. Need not be sex related, but any heavy, strong desire for sense gratification. So in Chaitanya Charitamrita also we understand Nij Indriya Priti Vancha Tare Dhare Kam Krishna Indriya Priti Icha Dhare Prem Nam. So the two things, lust and love, opposite of lust is love. Lust is all self-centered, me and mine. How do I satisfy myself? And love means service, love means pleasing. Love means pleasing the other. How do I please the other? Is if this act, if this thought, if this speech of mine is going to please the other person. Not much is needed actually. We can see the society by and large lives on this me tendency. And if we just make it upside down, from me, we go into a we tendency. Not much is needed actually. Not much. Just me and change it upside down, we go into a we tendency. And we'll find much peace, much more joy when we start caring for others, when we start genuinely looking for others, and when we start genuinely caring for ourselves as well, detaching ourselves from the body, as in understanding who we are, then we'll respect more. When we understand our identity, our existence, then we'll respect more the body, the mind, say our intellect, our egoistical satisfaction, desire. That is needed, changing from me to we. And again, this will come about when we protect our present moment, when we safeguard our present moment, when we value the company we are with. Who do we hang out with? Who do we spend time with? What sort of activities are we engaging ourselves in? Otherwise, it's easier said than done. I mean, a child can write me and we, right? And job done. It doesn't work like that. It's like the activities we are engaged in, the people who are surrounded with, what are we listening, what are we watching, what are we eating. What we eat directly influences our thought process, or strongly builds it up, our thought process. And based on our thought process, then we will be pulled by our desires, and furthermore, Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita, it is this heavy desire, lust. And then further on, in that series only, very nicely, detailedly explained, very neatly explained the problem, the cause of the problem, the solution, ultimate solution, how to go into the ultimate solution. Evam buddhi param buddhva stamstabhya atmanam jehi shatrum mahabhavo kamarupam durashadam. So, Krishna helps us identify, first of all, understand who is your enemy. Who is our enemy? Where does the enemy reside? How does he act? How does he work? And how to kill that enemy. Krishna calls Arjuna Mahabhava. So Krishna has expectations from us as well. Us as well. So we understand our true worth, our true glory. And to find out where this enemy is residing. Who is actually our enemy, real enemy. And by cultivating, harnessing our spiritual intelligence, harnessing our spiritual intelligence, at once kill this enemy. It's not like, okay, we can afford to wait and wait. No. Then and there. And it's a constant endeavor. To understand and kill. Because if not, then we are feeding it. And one day, it may become like a vampire or something. We are constantly being sucked as well, and one day it could be too late. Might be too late. So the whole spiritual practice helps us to take a breath, take a pause, reflect, assess, and actually look more internal, change more internal. We change ourselves. We help ourselves actually to grow. And then we'll see, yes, we are an evolved personality. On our external side, body would still remain the same perhaps. But internally, we have grown. And the power of samskaras, what Javat Prabhu was explaining yesterday, they're very strong. Impressions stored in our mind, they're hugely strong. And this is what this good samskars actually helped Ajamil, helped Ajamil so much that he got liberation. So, samskars, or the impressions which we have been carrying from our previous lives, even in this life as well, we can see, say someone who is in his 40s or 50s and doing something for a period of time, but then stopped. But later, all of a sudden, if it comes, then somewhere back in the memory, he would try to actually again start, again pick on it, again work on it, and yes, it wouldn't take him much long. Say someone practicing music might have stopped playing, but then at a later point in his life, if he picks up harmonium or mridanga or kartal and all, it would come about. Because it is still there somewhere in the memory lane, back in the memory lane, it will come about. So likewise, we all are driven by our samskars. These samskars, working upon it, they become our habits, our nature, and they force us again to commit the same thing over and over again. Could be good, could be bad as well. And in this instance, Ajamil's instance, what happened? As he was on his death path, he was meditating or focusing, he was wanting the association of his child. He was calling out actually his child, helplessly, Narayan now, Narayan. But see this four-letter word, Narayana, Narayana. As he was calling Narayan, when he came like yana, na, closing to it, the samskars came about. Oh yes, from previous, I once used to be a Brahmana. I once used to engage in devotional service. I once used to chant the holy names. And that activated again in him a mood of some devotion, some repentance, some awe and reverence. That again, and when he called out, he was calling out his son, but simultaneously that also got invoked in him. That once upon a time I used to be a devotee, I used to be a spiritual practitioner. And this again evoked in him. So for us as well, if we keep the good company, the right company of wise people, and if we engage in some spiritual activity, predominantly chanting the holy names of Krishna, listening to the holy names of Krishna, then we'll find that we are changing our samskars and everything. We are aligning ourselves more to the ultimate fulfillment of our life, our highest joy rather. Okay, on this note, maybe I will take a pause and any questions or comments or yes, bro.
This issue of samskaras, you see, constantly asked for spiritual things, but we have, I know personally I have so many very negative impressions in my mind, so when I try to do something, devotional, mood or some sort of devotional activity, and then it brings to mind some sort of negative things from this lifestyle or previous lifestyle or something. So how do we, how do we combat these negative samskaras?
Actually, most of us, if we see in this world, we carry a very low energy. We carry a very negative low energy. If you see many people, if they are applying for an exam, for a job interview or this or that, so many things, we are more haunted by negative thoughts, by negative ideas, negative impressions, negative results, than by positive. Then yes, being more optimistic or hopeful. We are constantly bombarded and more kind of negative. And we take more shelter, oh yes, something wrong is going to happen to me. And if like a month or a week something shaking up has not come about, we see, oh, what's happened? It's been 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. I've not been disturbed by anywhere. How? Coming to your point, bro. So negative samskars, yes, we all like carry impressions, and most of them, or quite a bit of them, are negative. And how to get rid of them is by actually calling out the names of Krishna, calling out the holy names of Krishna in a more meaningful, as if we mean it, in a deep, meaningful, prayerful way. Yes, as if we mean it. And anything and everything which is given in our life, coming from previous, is actually helping us to go back to Krishna, take the shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna. And now we should have this much of confidence actually that we are in the circle of devotees, we are in the vicinity of temple, in the circle of devotees. So all this life is like shifting ourselves from me to we, likewise shifting ourselves, our karmic records, our samskar records from the hands of Brahmaji and give it, take the internal potency of Krishna. Then, oh Krishna, I pray to you, please help me. Please help me. And then our samskars, our karmic reactions, everything, the records will be getting cleared in the database of Lord Brahma, and history will be written in the under the care and shelter of the internal potency of Krishna. And this would come about when we chant strongly, as if we mean it. And it is just this one life. If we can hang on to this one life, if we can protect our present moment in this one life. Now, 1 hour later, 2 hours later, evening time as well, next day as well. And by being in that position, we will always find that yes, we are in the present moment. So that helps. By strongly chanting the holy names of Krishna, our samskars will change, our this habits, our nature will change. And even if those samskars impressions are there, we wouldn't get really bothered or affected by it. And there's this practice required, good practice required, wholesome practice required, safeguarding our company, the company we keep, then going through Srimad Bhagavatam, study of Srimad Bhagavatam will help us relish that awakening. And even if those samskars are coming, we wouldn't be getting really affected. We wouldn't pay attention to it. Our focus and attention would still be towards Krishna. So whatever Krishna you desire. Because now practicing devotee, we would want that we do not want to be no more in this conditional state. Our practice shouldn't be like in a conditional state. So we want to be in that pure state. So being in that pure state, by regular practice, by sincerely chanting the names of Krishna, associating with devotees, honoring prasadam, and seeing ourselves a bit. And surely if someone is in the company of devotees over a period of time, there will be a change of heart, there will be a change of thought process, there will be a complete shift in consciousness. So, see, samskar, swabhav. So our samskars, regularly they make our swabhav, our nature. And then the swarup comes about, as in a living entity takes birth in a particular family. Swarup means identity, means form, one's own form. But in this instance, say one takes one's material body based on his previous impressions and desires. And then the place and time, they influence us a lot heavily. Time of the day, morning, evening time, noon time, whichever time of the day, it influences us. Some time of the day we easily fall asleep. And the place also has a strong influence. So all these are influencing our consciousness, and they all influence our service attitude as well. Our service attitude or our dealing or participating, the impressions we have in our subconscious mind, our nature, time, place, they all lead to the formation of our swarup, of our swarup. But in this, like speaking, say in Sanskrit, Samskar, Swabhav, Stan, is place, Samay, time, Swarup, they all influence our consciousness and lead to the development of our body, material or spiritual as well. And the most important thing in this is to help to cut off this material body and attain one spiritual body is another S, which is Sangha, one's company, one's association. So as they say, all right, like a person is defined by whose company he lives in. Yeah. Tell someone that, okay, who are your friends, and I will tell you what that person is sort of. So to give you peace, I will end with a short story. Most of us would be knowing this story, but it's very interesting and I find it. So it was, I believe, Albert Einstein, and he was, everyone knows he was quite academic and writing papers, research and everything, and in the field of science giving his contribution. So he had many places to visit, many seminars, many places and all, to give talks and inspire, and also in his circle of educated people, like that. So once he was on his way to a visit to a seminar, to give a lecture, and he was assisted by his driver. And Einstein, he told his driver that I feel very tired today. I feel very tired. Well, day before yesterday we had Gaur Purnima festival, so much things to do, and also now I feel very tired. Well, Albert Einstein said, like, I had a very packed schedule and all, and I'm feeling very sleepy, very tired, very lethargic, not so activated, and I have to go and speak there in the seminar for 30 minutes. What to do? So the driver, he said, well, I can help you out. I have a suggestion. I can be of some assistance. How about I go and speak in your place? How about I go and speak in your place? So Einstein said, well, are you sure? I'm not joking. And this sounds like a very crazy idea. Well, the driver said, okay, see this. I've been with you for 10, 20, whatever, these many years. I've assisted you in so many seminars. And I've actually listened to your discussions, discourses, and so many things. So I know, give me a chance and I will speak it out. You need not worry. I have listened more than 20 years. I've been listening to you. And with this, there is some relations, they are so, they have the affinity, right? If that's the word. Like, go to Tesco supermarket. We see that same person and all. So they also, okay, this is our regular staff and this is our this. So like that, the driver and this boss, there's an affinity. So Einstein said, fine, yes. Okay, I will let you speak. Fine. So they changed the cloth. Look-wise also, he looked similar to Einstein. And they just changed their dresses, so the coat and all, and he carried the papers with him. So fine, Einstein then parking the car and coming up to the seminar hall, and this driver, he went in and he was received, and he went in and he went to the stage, and he said, the driver said, well, I won't speak much. I'm feeling a bit tired, but when it comes to give the talk, I will talk. Fine. So coming to giving the talk, and he gave the talk, and he was giving it in a manner as if Einstein himself was speaking, because he had spent 20 years with him, listening him and everything. So he gave the talk very nice, and then open up for question and answers. And someone asked the question, Samskaras. This gives us negative impressions. Someone asked the question in the audience, a science-related question. And this question was a very good question. Something that driver never heard of, and it was a bit tricky or something. So the driver said like that, well, I appreciate your question, and this sounds like a novice question, but for me, It's not Nova, it's not a big thing. And this questions, well, I've addressed 2-3 more questions before, and I've actually a bit tired. So this is such a simple question. Actually, it's very simple. You just need to understand this simple logic. And you say to the audience, it is such a simple question. I will let my drivers answer for it first. I'll let my driver answer the question. So he's a driver, can you answer his question? If you need any help, let me know. I will help you out. So the driver was Einstein. And yes, he grabs the question and he answered it very nicely. And then the driver who was on the podium actually said, so fine, does this resolve a query? Yes, very good. Okay, Hare Krishna, we'll leave it here. And then they went peacefully. So this is the power of company. This is the power of company whom we keep, whom we spend time. And in our lives as well, we find when we spend much time, well, midwives, those who work as midwives, they are like as good as doctors or they can help. Likewise, we see in accountancy, one may not be academically very qualified, hasn't got that certificate, but by associating, working with accountants, he also gets to understand. So it is the company which we keep. So if we keep the company of the holy names, if we keep the company of scriptures, and if we keep the company of devotees, life would be sublime. Hare Krishna. Any last question or comment? Thank you very much for your patient listening and encouragement. Grantraj Srimad Bhagavatam Mahapuran ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Nitai Gaur Premanandi.